Food has changed so much since the 18th century. If somebody who's not used to looking at these cookbooks just grabs one off a shelf, it'll kind of blow your mind. Even recipes are written out extremely differently than they used to be. We're using different ingredients. Our meals look different. For rich people in the time period, meals were very extravagant. And nowadays, they're a lot more simplified. And for poor folks, or even just working class folks, our meals are definitely elevated since the 18th century. When you have a modern palate and you look at a cookbook from the 18th century, your immediate thought is, these ingredients don't go together. You really have to stretch to think, why would they put that with that? I would never make a dish like that. And then you come into this kitchen, and for educational purposes, we go through and like, I don't care what my mind says works. I'm gonna try exactly what they said. And we are surprised every single time. We have very rarely cooked something in this kitchen that we did not like. So it's hard for us to imagine a dinner or a supper being something that is just vegetables and maybe bread, or liquid and bread, or cheese and bread. They did that all of the time. And today's dish is not that simple, but it's definitely using ingredients that I never would have thought to put together. And I never would have said, this is gonna be a complete meal. My family's gonna be happy after they eat this and go to bed with a full belly. Today's recipe is onion pie, and onion pie was an extremely popular dish in the time period. You see it in multiple cookbooks, some of the very popular cookbooks. This recipe comes from Primitive Cookery, and that was a cookbook that was made for households of less means. And so you would basically take cheap ingredients and then get something in that dish to kind of bring it up and make it feel a little bit more homey, a little bit more rich. This recipe is using some very low ingredients. We're gonna go throw some butter in there to make a nice pie crust, and that's gonna bring the whole thing up. It even uses butter interspersed where you might not usually see that, just to make the recipe feel a little bit more rich. Now, these ingredients are pretty common ingredients for the time period. You would probably be able to find them at a market. If you lived in a community, it would not be hard to get your hands on these ingredients, even if you didn't grow them all. We're talking onions, apples, eggs, potatoes, butter, and flour. Everybody can make this dish, then and now, and it is delicious. So let's talk about eating food in a community of people real quick. In 1797, The Seaman's Guide is written by John Cochrane. And in that book, he's talking about how it seems like the entire British cooking system is based off of baking. But the problem is that they don't all have ovens. And so he's got this idea because he's been up to Quebec and he knows what earthen ovens are, and he's trying to bring that back to England and implement people using earthen ovens. It's not really catching on, but at any rate, there are some ways to bake at home, like a Dutch oven is something that people would use. But oftentimes you would go to the local baker. And the local baker, while he's baking his bread and making his other wares that he's going to sell, he will also put your pie or your loaf in his oven and cook it for you. So if you're living in a community, you have the plus side of having this local baker. In a way, it's almost a communal oven that the whole community is able to use. Now he owns it and he'll do the baking for you, but you can make your pie, you can take it to him, he'll bake it, you can come back and get it, and you don't have to have an oven at home, which is a really, really neat way that the communities just thrive together. Like I said before, this cookbook, Primitive Cookery, it was made specifically for people of lower means. Now, in a lot of the cookbooks that are not necessarily written for people of lower means, they were well aware of the problem of poverty. And they were trying their best to make sure that people that weren't able to get the finest ingredients could still have really good food. They're still including recipes that are like fake versions. Like, this will get you most of the way there recipes. And I think that that's really neat. I think that it's neat that even outside of people that were specifically writing for that purpose, people have that in mind, and they're trying their best to make sure that people that are not able to get all the ingredients that they could possibly want are still eating really good food. One last thought on Primitive Cookery before I read the recipe. It's also called The Kitchen Garden Displayed, and it focuses a lot on vegetables. If you are looking for a time period book that teaches about cooking with more vegetables, maybe you're a vegetarian, it's not quite vegetarian, but it's almost there, and this is a really great book for you to try. Now, the recipe. To make onion pie. Wash and pare some potatoes and cut them in slices. Peel some onions, cut them in slices. Pare some apples, slice them. Make a good crust, cover your dish, and lay 1/4 pound of butter all over. Take 1/4 ounce of maize beaten fine, a nutmeg grated, a teaspoonful of beaten pepper, 3 teaspoonfuls of salt, and mix all together. Strew some over the butter, lay a layer of potatoes, a layer of onions, a layer of apples, and a layer of eggs, and so on until you have filled your pie, strewing a little of the seasoning between each layer, and 1/4 pound of butter in bits, and 6 spoonfuls of water. Close your pie and bake it an hour and a half. A pound of potatoes, a pound of onions, a pound of apples, and 12 eggs will do. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna shrink this recipe down a little bit. I've got a family of 6 and we're not gonna eat a 3.5 pound pie. So there's no reason for most people in a modern setting to make a pie this large. But we are still gonna use all these same ingredients. We're just gonna simplify it a little bit. And what's nice about this is, say you get off work and in the modern setting, you are like, oh, I don't wanna cook. I'm gonna go to the grocery store and I'm gonna pick up a frozen lasagna or something like that because, man, it's gonna be a busy night. This is that kind of a dish for the folks in the time period. They can catch all of these ingredients on their way home from work, from a market or from a vendor or something like that, and they're gonna get home, they're gonna throw a pie crust together real quick, slice the stuff up, and throw it in the oven. It is that easy. Now, this recipe requires a bottom and a top pie crust, and don't worry about it, we're gonna make it together. I know pie crust can feel very intimidating. It doesn't have to be. We're going to make it right now. So what we want is flour that is 3 times the amount of butter that we have. I've got 7 ounces of butter, so about 21 ounces of flour. And we're just gonna get that butter in here while it's still cold, and we're gonna start working it into our flour. After we get our butter kind of pinched in and incorporated with our flour, we're gonna add just a little bit of water and we're gonna work that until it's the right consistency. Then we'll flour our surface and roll it out. After you have your pie crust all rolled out, we're gonna put the bottom crust inside the pan. And at that point, we need to pare the apples and potatoes. We're gonna get those chopped up nicely. We gotta skin our onions and get those chopped up nicely. And then also we need to boil some eggs. And for a single pie like this size, I think that 5 to 6 eggs is gonna do it for you. So you're gonna give those a hard boil, set them off to cool, peel those, and then you're gonna chop those into thin pieces as well. And we're gonna begin to layer these into the pie pan. So first, we're gonna put a little bit of butter at the bottom, and we're gonna do a layer of potatoes. Then we're gonna put in some kitchen pepper, and then we're gonna do a layer of apples. We're gonna do a layer of spices in between each one of these layers. At the very top, you're going to put some butter, and you're gonna put just a little bit of water, a few teaspoons really, it's not very much at all. And then we need to cut some vents in the top crust of our pie after we've placed that on and sealed it all the way around the edges. Let's talk about kitchen pepper really quickly. Kitchen pepper, we have packaged up. It's on the Townsends website if you want to buy it that we've made for you, or you can watch the kitchen pepper video that we did on the channel and you can make it yourself. But it's a blend of 6 spices. It's really great. You can use it pretty much in everything, and it's gonna be wonderful in this recipe. Now, while the recipe itself calls for salt, pepper, nutmeg, and mace, kitchen pepper has ginger and salt, it has pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, and clove. And it's going to be wonderful in this pie. All right, so our pie is ready to go. Now, if you're cooking this at home, you're gonna wanna set your oven to 350, let that preheat, and then you'll bake this for about an hour. If you have access to an earthen oven or a Dutch oven, that would be a really fun way to make it. We're gonna use a Dutch oven for this pie. With the Dutch oven, we're just gonna kind of keep an eye on it. I think it's gonna take around the same amount of time. I'm guessing an hour, and we're gonna just keep coals on top, have coals at the bottom, and it's gonna turn out wonderfully, hopefully. If you are a historical reenactor who camps at events and cooks, this is the perfect thing for you to make because you're rolling out a pie crust and there's a lot of paring and chopping. The public will get a good demonstration. Plus, none of the ingredients are gonna go bad sitting at camp. I'm about to taste a pie that is made of eggs, apples, onions, and potatoes. I have no idea what this is gonna taste like, but I'm gonna trust that it's good. So let's find out. That's so good. And it shouldn't be. But I think what gets it is the textures are awesome because at this point the potato's soft, right? The apple's got a little bit of crunch, but the onions have a ton of crunch, and the egg is really soft and kind of, I don't know, bouncy? Probably a terrible word for it, but it's like what's going on here? And I like texture in food, so your brain is just kind of like, what the heck am I eating? But it tastes really good the whole time because, I mean, there's a ton of flavor in it. I mean, apple and onion by itself, that does plenty. But you got some fat in there from the egg yolk, you got fat from butter, and you've got this kitchen pepper that's just covering everything. Absolutely wonderful.